So, you want to hear another story, huh? One where the very fate of Pandora hangs in the balance. If not, too bad, I'm telling you anyway.
Borderlands 2 is one of the greatest video games of all time. It completely redefined the looter-shooter genre, or even invented it by some people's standards. And in honor of it gaining its final DLC of copious amounts of spyware, I of course had to download it again immediately. The folks over at 2K and Gearbox Studios know that Randy Pitchford is hungry for your data and will do anything to get his greasy hands on it. Randy, you've done it again.
Good job, Randy. God, Randy Pitchford can't do anything wrong.
He's the perfect man.
If it wasn't for his constant obsession with magic tricks, he'd be the perfect man.
I think that makes him even more perfect. The game initially released about, 5 years ago. Despite the game's elderly age by video game standards, it holds up incredibly well, and unlike my grandmother, is still alive due to its very passionate fan base that continues to come back to it year after year. And although many other Borderlands games have been released since this game stopped receiving content, they all have sort of failed to live up to the same expectation that this game set. But even when I was a young lad, kicking over GameStop displays and jumping onto the counter at McDonald's whenever they ran out of my chalky milk, I could still tell that this game was very special. You start off Borderlands 2 when your train built by Boeing randomly explodes, destroying everything you've ever loved and also your family, and leaving you destitute on a planet where you have to make your own doctor's appointments. It's at this point that you and any people that you've successfully bribed into being your friend are given the opportunity to choose one of the best 6 Borderlands protagonists in all of the freaking franchise. If you don't agree with that, well, I hate to tell you, I calls them as I sees them. There's nothing I can do. Starting with our 2 DLC characters. First up, we have Krieg, the crazed, cleaver-clutching killer, careening through chaos like a cacophony of screams and coming sounds. Krieg is what happens to you when you eat 1 extra Flintstone vitamin gummy before bedtime, and is a precious, precious little boy who must be protected at all costs. Next up, we have Gage. Gage has definitively the best backstory out of all the Vault Hunters, since the only reason she's on the hell planet of Pandora is because she actually murdered a classmate after she lost to her in a school science fair. Afterwards, she was forced to flee to Pandora as a fugitive due to her based robot having hands rated E for everyone.
Death Trap, crush his balls.
Starting out with the original 4, we have Axton, the Call of Duty gamer man of Borderlands, and certified crayon-consuming individual. Despite looking like a piece of stale bread, Axton is actually a ton of fun to play, and canonically likes boys by complete accident. Representing the quiet kids you always made sure to talk to in high school, just in case they come in a little sadder than usual one day, is Zero. Zero's expertise lie in snipers, melee, and one-shotting every boss in the game. Zero doesn't have much lore about him, other than that he's very secretive and his name is definitely Luigi. Next up is my boy Salvador. He is what many people nowadays refer to as a short king, which means he has a particular weakness to extra-large birds of prey. Salvador's galaxy-brain ability is that he uses not 1, but 2 guns at the same time, affording him nearly infinite combinations with the trillions upon trillions of possible guns in the game. And last but certainly not least is Maya, which your Redditor gamer brain most likely has already tipped you off to the fact that she is a woman. And just like all women in real life, has the magical ability to lift up any man, make him feel things he's never felt before, and then take all of his money. However, despite the risk, I stand in solidarity with Krieg, my gooner in arms, in the belief that Maya is worth it.
Okay, it's worth it.
The first thing you see upon picking your character and spawning into the world is Claptrap, who proceeds to forcibly, against your will, introduce you to one of the main selling points of the Borderlands series, its humor.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am a CL4P TP steward bot, but my friends call me Claptrap. Or they would if any of them were still alive, or had existed in the first place.
the quintessential Borderlands humor. While not as prevalent in the first Borderlands game, it's ramped up to 11 in Borderlands 2. Which is actually quite the controversial topic among the Borderlands community as to whether or not this game is actually funny or extremely cringe. Whether or not Borderlands humor is funny at all is not the subject of this video, but what is the fact that it is interesting. It's not boring dialogue, and it's memorable dialogue. Good or bad, this shit sticks with you, and can make an entire friend group shut up during a play session just to hear what the stupid, funny little robot has to say. Having memorable dialogue is a big factor in a game's staying power, and is a reason why we're still talking about Borderlands 2 12 years later, and not Battleship the movie The Game, which also came out in 2012. I bet you didn't even know there was a game for this garbage movie. Do you even remember this garbage movie? I don't believe you if you said yes. After hopping over to the next objective and battling the hardest boss in the game, you arrive inside Claptrap's house, where you proceed to rob him blind and watch as he gets physically abused and mutilated by a
socioeconomically repressed youth of the nearby lower-income housing neighborhood.
Afterward, he instructs you to go grab the weapon he hides away in the cabinet, which brings us along to the next part of the video. Guns. Borderlands 2 has a lot of them, but it's not that there's just a lot of them. There is a massive variety of weapons, spread out amongst multiple types of weapons, grenades, and even shields. The variety is created by utilizing a multiple weapon parts system, as well as being split up amongst multiple different manufacturers, meaning that each time you find a weapon, its stats, element, and even appearance will differ depending on what weapon parts it happened to roll with. Essentially, even though you might pick up the base model of a gun, its uniqueness is randomly determined almost every time you find one. And guns can even have a completely different playstyle depending on what types of parts they have. But one important aspect of this that is not often talked about is that there is not too much variety or too much randomness. It is entirely possible for you to go out today and farm up your perfect weapon with the exact stats you want in Borderlands 2. And for a looter shooter, where farming is a expected part of the experience, it is very important to get that balance exactly right. Because the more difficult it is to get the thing you want in a game, the less motivated players are going to be to continue the grind, to continue to push until they get that legendary that they were grinding for. To put it simply, the variety is a nice thing initially and keeps players invested at the beginning, but once they've beaten the story and completed all the missions, they're going to want to make builds and get as strong as they possibly can. With the last piece of the puzzle being a suitable challenge for players to overcome once they have finalized their builds, in which Borderlands 2 strikes the perfect balance between a casual game you can play for 40 hours and a game that you can sink thousands of hours into and still have a great time either way. So that was about 2 minutes of unfiltered, memeless content, and I know your Zoomer brain is completely fried from lack of stimuli. So to compensate, I'm just going to dump about 2 minutes of memes directly into your frontal lobe all at once. After receiving your first Disagreement Annihilator, and receiving heavenly ordained guidance to air out the entire planet if they even look at you funny,
My child will use logic and reason to settle disagreements fairly without violence.
you officially head out with Claptrap and soon enter into the game's very first combat, at which point you will immediately notice that that, I think we've covered every single reason that Borderlands 2 is such a great game, and why, despite its age, it still manages to have the most staying power of any Borderlands.
John, is that you?
Call me Jack, honey. Handsome Jack.
Handsome Jack is one of the greatest video game villains of all time. Nearly every single line of dialogue this guy has in the game is iconic, and his presence is felt constantly throughout the story. He strikes the perfect balance between threatening and quirky, and isn't obnoxiously recording a TikTok? God, why is every character in Borderlands 3 so obnoxious? They just won't shut the up about some stupid shit. I really can't honestly explain it why Borderlands 2 is funny and comedic, but God, Borderlands 2 characters are so obnoxious. I was so happy to be done with the game because I was like, thank God I don't have to listen to these characters talk anymore. Jesus Christ. God, if Handsome Jack were here right now, this shit wouldn't have happened, alright? He would have cleared out all the damn bandits off Pandora, and there would have been never any clips of fucking twins, alright? That's what this is made. This is what Borderlands 3 is made me. I'm pro fucking Jack. I'm pro Handsome Jack.